High in the Hollywood Hills, on one of those California evenings that those who don't live here wonder why they don't, Quincy Jones was at the piano, trying to calm his nerves. At 83, it's hard to imagine what could possibly unsettle such a music legend. After all, he worked with the likes of Michael Jackson. He has 27 Grammys to his name, as well as an Oscar. But Quincy Jones' latest task is pretty daunting.
What's the biggest challenge? Just trying to figure
The
out.
big challenge is to do what, who, why. Because it's a big story to tell there.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours.
The story he has to tell is nothing short of the tale of Black America. He's producing the dedication ceremony for the opening of the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. As many as 20,000 people are expected to descend on the mall to watch President Obama cut the ribbon himself.
The key is there's no future without a good past, good knowledge of the past, and that's what we're trying to do.
Jones is on the museum's council and has been working closely with founding director Lonnie Bunch to help collect items of both musical and cultural significance.
He's had his fingers on sort of American culture for 60 years. And I find myself pinching myself, saying, I'm sitting here with Quincy Jones. Oh, my goodness.
Let me show you one of my favorite little things behind Sammy Davis Jr.'s tap shoes when he was a baby.
Oh, wow. I worked with him when I was 12.
Really? Well, he was probably 12 when we got those shoes.
Yeah.
This is just one of the museum's 11 massive galleries, displaying, in total, more than 30,000 priceless artifacts. There is a lot of space to fill. The museum is 400,000 square feet, 60% of which is underground.
I wish I knew how it would feel to be free.
Down on those lower floors, a darker tale is told. Slave shackles are bad enough, but these were used to enslave a child.
Drown, baby.
There's Emmett Till's casket, the young boy whose lynching in 1955 helped spark the civil rights movement.
We shall overcome one day.
And there's the stools from a Woolworth's lunch counter, where black students were refused service, and so refused to leave. But make no mistake, Bunch says, this is not, nor was it ever intended, to be the National Museum of Discrimination.
For me, the African American experience is an experience not of tragedy, but of unbelievable belief. Belief in themselves, belief in an America that often didn't believe in them.
Few items better represent that sentiment than a P.T. Stearman biplane flown by the pioneering Tuskegee Airmen of World War II.
If you could, in essence, fly as high and as fast as white pilots, then surely racial equality would follow on the ground.
There's also Chuck Berry's '73 Cadillac, Carl Lewis's Olympic medals, and Muhammad Ali's boxing gloves.
We had to say, let's tell the story and find the balance between those stories that are going to make you cry and those stories that are going to make you smile.
August Wilson, oh, what a genius.
Which is why Quincy Jones makes such a valuable resource. He, like so many others, has succeeded in the face of enormous obstacles.
When you come from the bottom, you never forget it. Never.
He was born in Chicago, in what he calls one of the biggest black ghettos in America. He lived for a time with his grandmother, a former slave, and while touring the South with jazz great Lionel Hampton, experienced firsthand the sting of racism.
We'd get to see the biggest church in town. From the steeple of one of the big churches, they'd have a rope and an effigy of a black dummy hanging off the top of the steeples.
You remember that to this day?
Hell, how are you going to forget that?
By the 50s, he watched some of the greatest entertainers on the Las Vegas Strip being cheered on stage, but scorned off it.
Belafonte, Lena Horne, Sammy, they couldn't even go into the casino. They had to eat in the kitchen, get $17,000 as starring at the show, and go back to a black hotel on the other side of town.
Given the struggle for equality, It's perhaps not surprising that even in the museum world, the African-American piece to the nation's historic puzzle was often missing.
If you believe in something, you have to stand up and fight and push and pull.
Few pushed and pulled harder to legislate a home for the museum than civil rights icon John Lewis. We met the Georgia congressman at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was pastor.
You've introduced a bill almost every year for how many years?
15 years, almost 15 years.
And what was the opposition?
There was just some feeling on the part of one or two, but there was one particular member, the late Senator Jesse Ham. Each time the bill would come up in the Senate, he would put a hold on it.
Every time?
Every single time.
It wasn't until 2003 that President George W. Bush finally signed bipartisan legislation getting the ball rolling. But it would be another 9 years before construction on the museum began, erecting the bones of what years later would support this bronze-colored structure that purposely stands out against its all-white neighbors.
What's it going to be like for you walking through those doors the first time?
I don't know. I'm probably going to try to hold it, but I probably will cry. It is my hope that it will help make America a better country and make our people a better people.
Getting us ready for the Smithsonian.
Yeah, that's exciting, isn't it?
Perhaps
Yeah,
it already
that's really
has.
That little Bible, I can think of it being in your hands.
Morris and Mark Person's ancestors were slave owners in Virginia and came into possession of what is one of the centerpieces of the new museum. It's a well-worn Bible belonging to Nat Turner, who in 1831 led a bloody slave revolt that left 55 white Virginians dead, all in a single night.
We had ancestors that were slain that didn't make it, so it's close to home. And no animosity against Nat Turner. I think it's a time for reconciliation.
It was actually two slaves who saved Mark Person's great-great-grandmother by hiding her from the angry mob.
The compassion of the slave saved her ancestors. So, I think about it, if it hadn't been for the slaves, I wouldn't be able to tell the story, and they could have easily said, here she is, and didn't.
As family heirlooms go, Nat Turner's Bible was so significant, experts say it could have gone for millions at auction. But the Persons didn't ask for a cent. In fact, Bunch says as much as 80% of the museum's artifacts were donated by ordinary people who pulled them out of their basements, their attics, or their churches.
It's the light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this is the light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh,
Each item in the museum's collection tells a story, some of a tortured racial past, others of resiliency and optimism. But they are all threads woven into the same tapestry, depicting not only how we as a nation got here, but how we as a nation are still struggling to make it better.
We still haven't figured it out.
You don't think?
Right, as we speak right now, we're trying to figure it out, And it's a dilemma, isn't it? It's a long time, man.
So what's the solution?
The solution is unite or fight, And I think it's time that we got to unite. Don't know when we're going to make it.